these people that cannot stand flat tards, flurfs. Oh, they hate the flurfs. They're so stupid and they're dangerous to our democracy and every other thing that they can think of. But you know what I'm saying? And so what I
mean, they
noticed,
had to go to Congress and specifically tell them to stop with the
right,
flat Earth stuff, right? They had to like, hey, this is
Yeah.
not flat Earth.
danger think, danger think.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm like, hang on, wait a second. You're always here. You're always here. You're always here. What is it? Oh yeah, well, if this is that, why don't you explain that? And what it is sort of like they're in the closet. They want to know, but they don't want the other sheep to know that they want to know. Otherwise, they'll get bleated at like the rest of the other sheep. You're not following the prescribed thing, right? And this is how they roll.
That's a good point,
sort of
dude.
like,
yeah, it's a good point, homie.
you put some facts out there, like the thing with the box. I've been using that, the thing with the box in the box. I'm like, if this is true, this has to be true, and it blows some minds. And then
it's a great argument.
They go into the gradient. See, they want to steer you into the gradient. And it's like, look, do you have a propane tank on your grill or something? You ever seen one? There's an overall pressure inside that tank, but there's a gradient inside the tank. Okay.
Yeah, bro.
Once the containment is breached, it has no choice but to succumb to equalization. That's all that's going to happen. Poof. Same thing as like you were saying, you open a beer. What's going on there? Why didn't gravity keep the gas in the fucking can, right?
Well, we've come to a point, guys, where they've diluted everybody's mind. They've engineered out all logic and reasoning abilities, critical thinking from mankind, to the point where people accept pseudoscience and theory that's completely non-demonstrable. They'll accept that over established physical laws of nature. I mean, the second law of thermodynamics is indisputable, and that's why it's a law, because it always works all the time. But yet, people will cling to a theory. It's insane.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, buddy. I'm sorry.
No, it's cool.
I was going to say another one that I mentioned is the Curie point, which doesn't really get talked about a lot, but is, because they will like to throw at us what's happening at the center of the Earth when no one can get there. Same way no one can get up there and prove second law of thermodynamics and all that. But the Curie point is something we can observe here on the ground. Same thing with the second law of thermodynamics, right?
Demonstrable, repeatable experimentation. There it is.
Every day. And it's contradicting what we were taught, but yet that is pushed as factual science, man. And that's another thing with my atom friend pulling all that atomism. He still thinks that what he was taught as science is still legit science, when majority of the science we were taught in these Rockefeller funded textbooks is pseudoscience. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not science.
We were raised on memes, bro. Straight up memes are in those books.
Here's what I always say, guys. Here's what I always say. Science has been co-opted. They've institutionalized science, okay? Mm-hmm. They've pulled it out of... Science is a method. Science is a method of discovery available to any human. Science involves some very basic principles. It involves the principles of the empirical method, all right? It involves the principles of objectivity. Things need to be observable, measurable, and repeatable. That's science, right? But what have they done? They've co-opted science. They've institutionalized it. They've made it part of academia, all right? They've
venerated the word. They venerated the very word science as though it's a thing. Trust science. Yeah.
Exactly, dude. They've turned the concept of science into They basically have turned science into given it its own persona. They speak of science as if it exists as a separate entity. It's not. It's a method. It's a method. It's based on certain principles, And I got to tell you, Austin, dude, that your boy Adam, man, that guy, he's a special case. That dude, man, he's a special one, man. He's just smart enough to get himself in trouble. He's just intelligent enough to get himself in trouble. It's like Mr. Miyagi. It's like Mr. Miyagi told Daniel-san in the original Karate Kid. He goes, walk on one side of the street, you're okay. You walk on the other side of the street, you're okay. But you walk in the middle of the street, you're going to get crushed like a grape. Mm-hmm. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And your boy Adam's sitting there walking right in the middle of traffic.
Right.
Dude, the fact that he had the balls to kind of challenge Austin Whitsitt to a debate is nothing more than hilarious. It's actually
I know.
Fucking insane.
It's hilarious, bro. And I wanted that to happen so much, but we're going to make that happen in the future. It's happening. He still wants to talk to Adam. He's like, Oh, you gave me Dave, but I wanted to talk to Adam, like as if
Oh,
he would
come on.
have. It's comical, but let me.
You're talking about Wits It Gets It
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Austin.
yeah.
Oh my word.
Yep.
No, 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 no,
Let
no.
me.
Dude, that dude is like a fucking genius,
He's
man.
next level, bro. He's the
Yeah.
one
Yeah,
I think that's gonna propel flat Earth into the. It's gonna put that flat Earth back on the scientific table. I feel
I
like
agree
Mhm.
with
he
that,
could be
Austin.
that.
He's our
But let me.
champion right now. Austin
Yeah,
Wittett's our
he's
champion,
crushing.
everybody. And let me tell you, hold on, just say this, and I want to introduce Andrew. Andrew's fucking awesome, dude. Andrew knows how to fucking use electrolysis to make water explode from
He's
hydrogen.
about to share some gravy here in a
Any
few.
guy
I
that
know
knows
that.
how to do that's fucking good in my book. But I just want to say
Yeah,
this
I've
real
done
quick
it.
to everybody. I just want to say this real quick to everybody. If you're in this community and you want to count yourself part of this community and you are in any way not supporting of Austin Witsit, I'm going to just say it right now. You need to really, really evaluate your
Yeah,
life
man.
because he's our champion right now. Everybody should be behind him. I watched when he went through his legal trouble, and I saw some of the community support him, but he should have got way more support from the community when he was going through his trouble. I just want to say that. So,
Mhm.
I just want to tell everybody, if you're not supporting Austin Witsit, you better re-examine what you're
I'll
doing
say
with your
this
life.
about him though, watching that whole thing happen, right? Because you see him. He gave up everything for the truth, right?
Yeah, he did.
But now, what do you see? You see him being rewarded tenfold.
And to his credit, he actually did yield on some points where he basically had no choice. He had to admit the frozen lake test that's pretty hard to explain. You got a 1 foot observer height. You have 1 foot lights. There's 3 of them, and when it zooms in on the camera, they're literally all in a straight line. So it's like, wow.
I'll tell you what's hard to explain. How can you see the Rockies at 500 miles away even from an airplane? That's the one nobody could explain because that's the one that destroys the globe and blows it out of the water.
There's one
Mhm.
further now. I just found it's like 700 and something miles all the way to the
Wow.
coast of Bali. J Tolan Media is crushing it with those infrared
Mm.
camera
Yeah.
pics.
It's
So
a death blow to the globe because once you do the numbers, and I've said this before, even if you have to go 35,000 or 40,000 feet in the air, if you could see something 500, 600, 700 miles away, it destroys the globe because,
Mhm.
as we all know, when you get to the curve, it's exponential, right? So you're talking about non-linear growth when you're talking about the curve as opposed to linear growth going elevating. So if you have to elevate to see something that far away, it still blows the globe out of the water. That's why I think that J Tolan stuff is so important to our community.
Oh yeah.
Well, you'd see
Adam.
the horizon. You'd see the horizon noticeably drop as
Oh
you
yeah.
gain in
Exactly.
altitude, and
Absolutely.
it doesn't. That Red's rhetoric guy tried to go with that on me. He said, "No, look at this drone and see my arrow on the thing. No, see when the drone raises, it's not on that blue line anymore." I said, "Because that blue line to you at the ground was just the physical. That was the apparent horizon. You're not seeing a physical horizon. If you zoom in, you'll see that the horizon beyond that area that you specifically picked because it was full of clouds and humid in Florida, you can see that that is the true horizon. And it's always going to be there, right where that arrow's at."
I just wanted to make a point is that we call the black swan a black swan for a reason because of this. The point I was trying to make before is that let's talk about logic, right? So one would say all swans are white. Okay, that might be true until you find one black swan. And as soon as you find that first black swan, you've invalidated that statement. That's why it's called a black swan, guys. That's why we call it a black swan. We have to remember
Since then,
that.
there's been even like more since then. I remember when that was like
Oh,
the
so
holy
many.
grail, and there's that's what I'm saying. There's so many observations that people just won't. I guess they just won't stay honest with themselves, or they
Well,
just can't.
here's
This shit
another
freaks them out.
here's another important part to take away from that debate that kind of answers the question of why more people don't come over, even though it is growing. Certainly, because you just can't take you can only take so much going on, right? And before the truth starts to get through. But the thing is, and this is what I told your friend Adam, because he said even if we see these observations and yada yada, that he would look for an alternative explanation before accepting that it's a flat Earth. And the way he put it was that basically burden shifting and saying, well, the flat earth is the only possibility. And that's fallacious to say. So I'm going to assume it's anything but the flat earth as long as I can.
Wow.
So I told him, I was like, listen, I can come up with a million reasons to do or not do something, or to buy or not buy something. To put it in sales terms, it's just about what the motivation is and what your intent is. And if you have bias, then it's going to affect your intent. You're going to look at things with a confirmation bias, and we're all guilty of that, but people who are unaware are especially guilty. So it's really important to notate that, and hopefully people who have never thought about that would, maybe open their mind to the possibility that maybe you're just selling yourself some bullshit.
Exactly. Well, you know what, Troubling Tribune, is that's why humans and mankind has developed things like logic and the principles of logic, because as humans, we're naturally emotional, right? We are. It bonds us. We have to be emotional. We're social and communal beings. Our emotions are survival for us. You have to have emotions to bond with other humans, and our survival is based on it. But here's my point. Our emotions are going to cloud our judgment, and that's why we have the principles of logic and reasoning, right? So, and they've engineered that out of us, and it's so hard with these people, because you realize very quickly that these people have very poor logic skills, right? And it becomes very difficult to have any type of dialogue with them because they're behaving completely illogically. I almost, when I quote unquote dialogue with these people, I don't even focus on the flat earth. I just focus on logic first. I just try to talk logic to them, because if they don't know anything about logic, the conversation really can't go anywhere. How's it going, Harmon? You're looking pretty fresh and clean, bro. Harmon's looking fresh and clean.
Well, what happened, what you're talking about, the logic, my family hasn't talked to me. Whenever I go over there, I'm invited but never welcomed, if you can understand that logic.
I got you.
And so I finally went there on Christmas Eve. They kept asking me to come. My boys are twins. They're 36. My daughter's 40. But I'm given a list of things I'm not allowed to talk about. I'm not allowed to talk about flat earth, nothing. I'm always given a list before I get in. And they take me outside and say, you're not allowed to say this, you're not allowed to say this, because all the family's there, and you'll get them all mad. So then, finally, after 5 years, my one son, I tried to do the logic thing you're saying. I said, okay, I started off water's level. He says, no, it's not. And I showed him 100 different ways how water was level. He says, it's not level. And how do you go from there?
Right. Here's the thing, Harmon. You don't have to show him how it's level. He has to show you how it curves. See, that's the difference. The globe is the claim. See, that's the thing about logic. They make the claim. They have to prove it, and they can't ever. And that's how logic works.
Their only
I
choice.
I couldn't even get past him. I couldn't get past that, so it's done.
I think what Tribune was saying too is that there's another factor, and we were kind of talking about it before, is the people that they know, right? And they've pretty much picked up on it, and they've figured it out, but they still are going to claim otherwise for two reasons. One, for ego. Two, because of what Harmon was just talking about right there. Right there, we are going to shun you. And most people can't take, there's a lot of people that really, really do give a shit what other people think about them.
Well, it's a survival thing, dude. We have to as humans. If you're cast out of the crew, I mean, your life would be in danger. If you were banished from the village, you're in fucking trouble, dude.
Well, see, that's
they play on social shame because their survival is dependent on it, homie.
Zetetic, I'm a person that relies on rugged individualism. Okay, I embrace that philosophy fully right there. And so I don't need the tribe. I embrace the tribe. I like the tribe. I like the company of the tribe, but I don't need the tribe. You see what I'm saying? So once I shed that, you know what? I already know you're in a trance. I know you're in a spell. So what you think of me is all derived from a spell, and it doesn't fucking matter because it ain't real.
Right.
At this point, there's a couple things. Either they're paid, and I really believe that, or they're bots.
I do too.
Because I've seen it on my channel, and I think a lot of it's AI at this point, and I do think there's paid agents. I really do, because the tenacity of some of these I won't call them globies. We're going to call them anti-flat earthers. Is beyond what any reasonable or even any unreasonable person would do. I think they're paid. I really do. I think they get paid to do it, and I think they're bots. And I don't have any doubt about it at this point.
Kind of like, well, we do know that there's Operation COINTELPRO, which is where they've actually got people that they say, okay, look here, like you're saying, they're not necessarily governments, but they're getting supported by government to do what you're exactly saying. And like you see them on Facebook or wherever else, other social media, here's this same guy, been there for years, arguing with flat earthers, using the same old tired shit over and over and over. And I'm like, wait a second. Why would you spend the majority of your waking hours in a group of people that you don't agree with whatsoever?
Exactly.
That makes zero sense to me.
Nobody would do it. Nobody,
No.
literally nobody. It doesn't make sense on any level that somebody would do that continuously unless they were motivated in some way to do so, probably financially, bro. It could be bots. The AI at this point is probably very advanced.
I was all about space, man. That shit was awesome growing up. I was all about it.
Well, that's what they do. They play on our emotions. They give us Star Wars and Star Trek and everything. You're connected. You're connected emotionally to it. See, what happens is you begin to identify with it, right? So your identity becomes entwined with their story. So what happens is then when someone challenges the model, people internalize it and they feel like their identity is being challenged. I think that's why you get the emotional reaction from people. It's because you're literally shaking them to their foundational core. And most of it's unconscious. They're not aware of their connection to it, right? So you're actually challenging their idea of self and their self-concept, right? And that's why the indoctrination is so ingenious. I got a question for Sovereign.
Yes, sir.
You think Manson should have been convicted?
No. And it's wild that you should ask me about that, because I lived right near where some poignant things happened regarding that case.
Noise?
That's my dog, and she's drinking water.
Oh, he's drinking water. Okay, yeah. Okay, makes sense now. Now I know what it is.
He'll be done. It sounds like lesbian porn.
No, it's all good. Let him have his water. It's all good.
Yeah, he's all right. So yeah, no, I don't think. And here's one of the things that a lot of people aren't aware of, even though this made the LA Times in 20.
Because what crime did he really commit, right?
Right.
Manson, he couldn't have been over 5'3". He's a little bitty guy.
Do you guys know who showed up at Sharon?
He apparently had a hell of a way with the ladies, though, based on the stories. The guy was like a machine, apparently.
Here's an interesting thing, man. Do you know who showed up first before the police to the Tate house to quote unquote clean up the scene? Jack Nicholson.
What?
I think I've heard that before.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And you know what they were cleaning up? They were cleaning up shit they didn't want the cops to be able to get a hold of, which included several 8mm movies. Now, what's Roman Polanski on the run and he can't come to the United States for? Oh, that's right. Pedophilia.
And it goes back to all the nefarious stuff that they're into in Hollywood and everything.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if all that Hollywood pedo stuff was involved in all that.
The floor is for anybody now.
Cool. I just wanted to ask Sovereign, do you think the concept of government has any legitimacy whatsoever?
No.
Me neither.
No.
I think it's an artificial construct of leadership, and I think it's
governmentis.
Yeah, I think
mind control.
Yeah, govern, control, meant.
It's literally in there. I think the natural structure of humans is just your leaders will develop. Think of the concept of a tribe. Your leaders are just your leaders. It's just the way it is. They're not elected. They're not in any way promoted. They're just your leaders. Just the way it is. A leader is a leader, and that's it. Whether it's an elder or somebody who's very strong or has the confidence of the group. I think the concept of a government is a completely artificial construct. I think
Yeah.
the Declaration of Independence is a dark spell put over humanity to get us to consent to our enslavement. When you put it right in there that the government is legitimized, the government is based on the consent of the governed. They put it right in there, right? We have to consent to our mind control. I think it has no legitimacy whatsoever at all.
Well, think about it like this. Think about it like this. If one would require a leader, okay? Think about every quality that you would want that leader to have. You would want benevolence.
And the dog are thirsty.
Yeah, well, I got 5 dogs, so I'm sorry about that, guys.
That's cool.
Wow.
Oh, but okay, so you want your leader, you would like to have a leader who is benevolent, one who is just, one who is unbiased and fair. You would want one who is, all of those good qualities. So be that. If you can be that, then you can lead yourself. What keeps me from coming over and killing someone? Because it's wrong. That's what keep me from doing that.
Right.
I wouldn't want someone to do that to me. Why would I do that to someone else? So that's the kind of mindset you actually have to have. Unfortunately, right from birth, they get you into this paradigm. They go, who do you want for president? And you're like, wait a minute. Do you want A or do you want B? And I'm like, wait a minute. You didn't even ask me if I wanted a fucking president.
Right.
Yeah. It's a false dichotomy.
Like,
Again, it's another logical fallacy. It's a complete false dichotomy. You give them two false choices to choose from. It gives them the illusion of choice.
Yep.
Really,
Well,
you're just controlling them.
The lesser of two evils is still evil.
I think
Yes, sir.
power is the only legitimate form of rulership in this world. I do think Nietzsche was right, and he gets villainized, but I do think power is the only legitimate form of rulership. Because look at now, we have these governments, but who's really wielding the power? They just wield their power from behind the scenes, whether it's bloodline elites or corporations.
Mhm.
The governments are just puppet structures. It's still power. It's always power.
A lot of these starlets are elite, like presidential model sex slaves, man. Like Marilyn Monroe, Jane Mansfield. Those
Yeah.
were presidential models.
They're sex kittens.
Yeah.
Yep.
And well, we saw the president, and we know the president enjoyed that a little bit. You could say he lost his head over.
Apparently, but dude, I almost don't believe anything anymore, honestly.
I know.
I don't believe history. I'm to that point, guys, where I'm not buying really much about anything told to me through history at all. I'm sort of there,
I take
Just-
it in and that's it, And,
Mhm.
Well,
I'm not about.
particularly that period of time between around the early 1800s to the early 1900s. There's some weird shit going on in there. If you look into that repopulation, reset shit,
Oh, dude.
wow. And
gets-
it all starts around that
it gets
Napoleon.
crazy.
It all starts
Yeah.
around that Napoleon shit. And here's what I think's funny. That's where Rothschild took control, was revolved around Napoleon. All these insane asylums go up all over the place. We got orphan trains
the
everywhere.
Oddfellows. Where are they called? The
Yeah,
Oddfellows.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And what's one of
Well,
the old
guys-
iconic stereotypes of somebody who is insane and need to be put in an asylum? Oh, he thinks he's Napoleon.
Interesting.
yeah.
And I
Well,
thought
guys,
that was
yeah.
kind of like, oh, wait, this all ties right the fuck back, And was this a place where they put folks that wouldn't go along with the new normal, with the new history that was being pushed out? And we're going to use mostly kids. We're going to get rid of most of the adults except for a few. And then we can give whatever fucking story we want. And here's this building. Look, it says founded in 1876. Let's break that down. Found dead in 1876 and refurbished as this.
Well, founded Freemasonry. They got it for free. Guys, let's get real here. I mean, let's go there. Look at the maps we see from the late 1500s. Look at the Urbano Monte map.
I have it.
Look at the lands. Look how different this earth was maybe even 500 years ago. What does that say to us? If you look at the Monte map that Austin's pointing to, first of all, there's obvious land at the North Pole, okay? Obvious, yep. It's the Monte map.
Yep.
That map is from 1596. Urbano Monte. It was a huge map. That's just a miniaturized version of it. He's an Italian guy.
It's 10 by 10.
Exactly.
Right.
It's 10 feet
10
by
by
10 feet.
10 feet.
Exactly. It was
Huge.
in multiple pages. But here's my point.
This is one
South-
little. This would be like this would represent one fucking piece of it. You know.
Yeah.
It's 10 by
They-
10 feet. It's huge.
Exactly. That was like the template one, and they're huge. But here's my point. If you really examine that map, first of all, there's livable, habitable land in Antarctica, which is represented as a ring around this realm. Okay. If you look, like I said, there's land at the North Pole. Not only that, there are creatures represented on that map that do not match up with anything in our given recent history whatsoever. There's cryptids, there's chimeras, there's giants and cyclops. There's birds carrying elephants. That's how big they are. All right. There's insane things on that map. Tataria is represented. All right. Here's my point. That map is supposed to be from 1596. Okay. Let's think about what are we talking about here? Extra land and beings.
That was a
You
board
know,
game. Zetetic Warrior, obviously. That's fake news.
Hey,
Who's
Austin.
fake smart.
Let me say this real quick. You wanted to
Pull-
talk
Austin?
about fake news.
Oh.
Hold on, let me share this really quick before I forget.
Got you, babe.
But we got some fake news right here. I've showed this before, but the Galileo manuscript has now come out as fake news. Okay.
Amazing.
Yeah, I've read this. It says from the University of Michigan, they went looking at it and they found it was a forgery from a 20th century counterfeiter named Tobias Nicotra in the 1920s, 1930s. It raises serious questions about the authenticity of our historical documents and the accuracy of our understanding of history. It's imperative that we carefully examine the sources of the information we learn and strive to uncover the truth about our past. So
They're
yeah,
probably
look what-
all fake.
Wow.
Well, guys,
I'm
look
gonna
what they did.
I'll
Look what
share
they
this in
did.
the chat.
Mhm.
Go
Look what they did.
That-
Look what they did with the globe lie. All right. They basically decided they were going to present us with a story. You know, people think it's fake science. People think it's bad science. It's not bad science. It's a lie. What's that mean? They made up all these figures, likely Galileo, Copernicus. These are probably made up. People have the balls to say Aristophanes proved the globe 2,000 years ago with two sticks in a shadow. Does that make any sense whatsoever? No, of course
No.
it doesn't. We have no proof that he existed. And the reality is, you know, if he proved anything, the guy would have been celebrated throughout history as a great genius. Nobody had a conception of a
No
globe
one
or
wrote
heliocentric
anything about that
model.
guy. There's no other scientist that even wrote anything about Aristophanes. There's nobody
Exactly.
else talking about him.
To use him in the globe argument makes literally no sense whatsoever. Here's my point. They're making up the history as they go along. We know the Jesuits ran academia for at least the last 500 years, if we're to believe anything. The Jesuits had control of everything. They perpetrated the globe lie likely. You know, and that's the hardest thing to tell people. It's not bad science. It's a lie. There's the North Pole. Yep. There's Austin showing. Obvious land in the north.
Isn't that cool? The David Rumsey map collection. You go to this site and you can get all kinds of maps. This is there, and you can zoom in and look at detail and shit if you
Nice.
want to translate some of this stuff.
Oh,
Because
this
the
is
real
cool.
thing is actually 10 foot by 10 foot.
Mm-hmm.
The actual map in the collection. I have a replica. It's a 30-inch by 30-inch. But I'm waiting to get a frame. I have to get it custom framed.
Nice.
Because it's hard to find a square frame that
I
big.
have this on my wall too. This is a nice feature. Thanks for posting that.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing I want to point about this map. It shows armadas all over the world. You know, these guys were exploring our world viscerally, right? So they're in these ships and boats. They were navigating by the stars using celestial navigation, compasses, right? These guys were on the water. They didn't fuck the maps up.
Where the hell did Friesland go? Where the hell did Friesland go? Now it's a town in Denmark. It used to be in a land right near Iceland.
Mm-hmm.
It's shown on all kinds of maps. I've got it on the Mercator map of the polar region right here.
Mm-hmm.
Friesland. Where the fuck did it go?
Right. Guys,
where did the four lands in the middle go?
When you look at these maps, guys, that are 400 and 500 years old, you know, they're representing the continents. You can look at Europe, you can even look at California, and they were accurately representing what the land looked like. Do you think they were just making up these other lands just for shits and giggles? They had this place mapped out,
Well,
right?
the Zetetic,
They knew what this
here's
place
a way
was.
that here's what I tell people too, because I hear that, oh, they were just trying to make it artistic and shit like that. Look, very rich people and leaders and kings commissioned these cartographers to make these maps, and they had to be as accurate and detailed as possible, because if you're telling me that there's lumber in this land, or there's animals in this land, or maybe even a city to conquest, right? And I go there and find out you're full of shit, your head's going on a stick. Okay, they weren't fucking playing around. You couldn't play
Right.
around.
Mm-hmm.
This was serious shit, because the people that commissioned you to do that were relying on that information for their entire politic.
What a great stream. What a great, like, whole string of conversations that was, man. Wow, so stimulating. Thank you for everyone who came in and jumped on. That was awesome.